Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be talking about textures again. Yesterday we did a video about one way you can make a nice metallic kind of texture for kind of like a background element, and today we're going to do it again. We're going to do it in the same format, aka I'm going to show off the sound that I made on stream first and kind of walk you through the basic principles of what we're going to do, and then we're going to kind of using the same tactic again make a similar sound. And so this is the part 2. I highly recommend you watch part 1 because in the next video, which I hopefully can upload tomorrow, we're going to go over and we're going to combine both of the sounds into one final texture that is going to be the texture that we can use in a track. Of course, each individual sound that we're making right now can also be used if you process them nicely, but we'll leave that to the end and kind of put it all together into a really cool sound, really complex stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so here is the sound that I made on stream. This is what we're going to go over first. And yeah, so let's listen to this. So this is a really cool sound because it's made from a vocal sample, and you can really hear some of the vocals still in there, kind of a little bit of a vocally vibe to it here. You can kind of like hear it talk, but you can't really understand what it's saying. And it started off again as a patch, and then we resampled it. So it started off like this. This is what the final synthesis part of it sounded like. So let's quickly go over it. What we're doing is we're basically combining all of the EQing and the kind of volume control we did in the last time into choosing the right sample. So you want a very dynamic sample, a sample which has a lot of silence, but also a lot of different kind of vowely sounds and stuff like that. And then we're using the delay trick again to kind of get that metallic feeling out of it. And this time with 100% wetness, so that the original vocal doesn't come through and kind of mess with the sound, because without the delay it sounds kind of not really that nice. So the way you set this up is kind of cool actually. It's called granular synthesis. It's very useful for textures like this. It allows you to kind of stretch out a sound and do all kinds of crazy things with it. It's also the way the texture and the tones mode actually work for warp modes, and we're going to use the texture mode again in this sound here. So let's start off. I'm actually going to choose the same sample I did last time. So I'm going to go into my sample pack, which I have for this, and quickly get it for you. Now you don't need to use this exact sample, but you do want something similar like this. So which works very well for this is spoken words. In this case I'm using a lo-fi phrase, but that doesn't really matter for the sound. And you want it to have a lot of silences. You don't want it to be just a whole bunch of sound and no silence. You want also some different kind of format things there for spoken vocals. Very cool, because it has all of those different formats which kind of correspond to the different EQ textures that we used last time. So I'm just going to drop this in here, and that's going to create a simpler for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on loop and turn off snap. So just invert these buttons here, and I'm going to set the length down to very short length, somewhere around 1.5 or maybe a little bit more, 1.6, 1.7, so that we just are playing a little chunk and it's kind of looping again and again. Let's actually hear this. And we're going to play it an octave lower than what you would normally do. So it's a little bit darker sounding. And we're quickly going to make another MIDI clip. Now I'm going to make this shorter again to match it with what we have over here. and we're going to go in and we're going to place down a note at C2. So this is going to play the sample back an octave lower than the original that we had. So let's listen to it right now. It's just looping. Now the cool thing about granular synthesis is if we take the starting position and kind of modulate that, you can do some cool things with that. So let's say we put it like this, it will just play back the sample a little bit faster than the original. The original is up here, and as you can see it's a little bit longer than our MIDI clip, so we'll replay it a little bit faster. So if you were to play it at the exact same length, at the exact same octave, which I can quickly show you by just extending this and turning this into one note, just to kind of demonstrate. Oh, let's go back in here, turn it up. It should just sound like the original sample.
There is no place and no moment in history where I could stand and say, arithmetic begins here, now.
So just as a quick side note, the way the warping feature works inside like texture and tones is that they kind of manipulate this curve in order to warp. So let's say you were making a warp point right here. For example, let's open up this thing and we're going to make a warp point right here, which is going to correspond to right here. And we're going to set a warp point there, and it's going to have one at the start, and we just turn it forward up until here. That basically is the same as taking this value, so 45.5, and setting it to here. Edit value 40 or 54.5. I'm sorry. So this will do the same thing.
There is no place and no moment in history where I could stand and say, arithmetic begins here, now.
It's probably the other way around actually. It's actually probably more like up here. But basically this curve kind of acts like a warping mode. So what we can do if we go back to our original setup and turn things down like this, we can kind of change the way it's going to warp the sample. And again, I've set it to an octave lower than before. And we can do something cool like this, for example. We should also use the end of the sample a little bit more maybe. Let's start off like this, do some crazy stuff. And now you can hear we have this. Now there are some clicks and it doesn't sound great. So what you can do is you can set up a little crossfade, let's say around 35% here. And it will kind of crossfade and eliminate those clicks you get from not having the zero crossing. Alright, so now we can add our delay and kind of finalize this texture. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open up the delay effect here. And again, we're going to use a very short delay time. And we're going to set it to the same key as our last one, so that will be 10.2. And we're also going to use the ping pong effect. But this time, as I said, we're going to set up a fully wet signal. And we're also going to give it a very long feedback so that it decays long and it has some nice tones to it. So that will give us this sound. I'm going to quickly set it to fade because otherwise it might mess up a little bit. So then you get this metallic tone, which is really cool. And now we're gonna record this and we're going to go again, basically do the same thing we did last time with the warp mode and stuff. So let's quickly take this track. I'm sorry for the mess, but this is the stream project. So unfortunately we kind of have to deal with it, but we're going to take input from this track and we're just going to record the sound here. Alright, so now we have our texture here, which we can use. And we can set up a warping for it. So I'm again going to go to texture, set the flux to 0, which is basically going to mean that what corresponds to the fade here is going to be 0%. And This grain size, by the way, corresponds to the length parameter here. It's a little bit more intelligent than what we're doing here. Of course, a lot of work has been put into these actual warp modes, so they're a little bit more intelligent. But again, we're going to go with a very low grain size. Let's set it a little bit higher than that, so we have a little bit more room to play with. And we're going to set up our grain size here. Now, we're going to do it the same way we did last time, where we kind of do like a sample and hold thing and just kind of have it sometimes at the same value for a little bit longer of a time, so that it has like a nice tonality to that part. And we might go something like this here at the end for a nice slide. And we're also going to turn off the warp or the grain size envelope here. And again, we're going to make it do some work by warping this. And this is a little bit random the way I do it. I tend to kind of mess around with it and just make sure that the warp mode actually has something to do everywhere, so that it actually needs to use that warp mode to kind of you know, work. Otherwise it might not give us the result we want. So that's the final product here. And as you can see from the length of this video, this tutorial was a little bit shorter. This way, I like this way a little bit more if I want to get a quick texture out there. But with the other way, you kind of have a little bit more control over things like the volume and the way it envelopes and stuff like that. So if you're interested in having like complete control over your sound, I recommend you watch the last video. And if you want to know how we're going to finally combine these sounds and kind of turn them into the final texture, where we're going to also add delay and reverb and stuff like that to make it sound great, then watch the next video, which hopefully I can upload tomorrow. So if you like this video, feel free to subscribe, and also leave a like. That really helps the channel out a lot, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.